Welcome to Prediabetes and the Path to Better A1C podcast. I am your host, Jenny Pena. I am a national board certified health and wellness coach, a diabetes prevention program lifestyle coach, founder of Gen B Coaching, and creator of the A1C Reset Protocol, my own 12 weeks health coaching program that is designed to balance your blood sugar, regain your energy, prevent type 2 diabetes, and live your best life. Here's a number that kind of stopped me in my tracks. I read about how the risk of dementia starts climbing as your blood sugar rises. And not just if you're a diabetic, even in people with normal, non diabetic blood sugar. And I say that in quotes. If you were able to see me, you will see me doing quotes. But even those that are not diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, the higher the average of their blood sugar, the higher the risk to the brain developing dementia. Now, there is no magic line where the danger suddenly switches on, and it's kind of a slope, to be very honest. And most of us are somewhere on it without knowing. So let's just put that out there. Now, today, I want to talk about something almost no man gets told at the doctor's office, and that is the connection between your blood sugar and your brain, how it works, the signs to watch for, and the simple things that actually protect your memory. This is the conversation men aren't having, and I have to loop in the women. By the end, I am going to ask you to listen and share this episode with one man at least in your life, okay? Because it's going to help them. Now, let's get into it. Why these matters for men? Because I know women, everybody's talking about menopause and perimenopause. We are getting a lot of buzz, a lot of information, but men, not so much. And when we hear blood sugar, we typically think diabetes, waistline, maybe giving up the cert. We almost never think about the brain. But here's the reality: the brain runs on sugar. Glucose, it's actually its main fuel. And when there is too much sugar floating in the blood for too long, it kind of, okay, how am I going to say this? It quietly damages the plumbing that feeds the brain. That's the best way I can explain it. And there are a few things that I want to share. There are some studies, there's some research. Go and dig deeper or send me a message if you want the specific references. But there are a few things out there, right? Like having diabetes raises your risk of dementia by roughly 50 to 60%. That's not a footnote. That's a major risk factor. Now, the good news on the flip side is that there was a 2024 report from the Lancet Commission. It's one of the most respected reviews in this field. And they estimated that about 45% of dementia cases are potentially preventable. How, you may ask? By addressing the risk factors that we can control. Listen to this: half. And here's the man's angle. Of those modifiable risk factors, more than half are more common in men. So things like physical inactivity, smoking, diabetes, high blood pressure. It seems like men carry more of the load, however, they get screened less. And there is even a strange twist in this data. On paper, women actually get diagnosed with dementia a lot more and more often than men. But there is a big reason, and that is that women live longer. Sorry, guys. And dementia is age driven. Part of why men's numbers look a little lower, but there is a connotation to it. There is some aspect there that makes it look slower. I think it's more of appearance than anything else. And a lot of men are taken earlier by heart attacks and metabolic disease before they ever reach the age where dementia shows up. And sorry, this is sounding like so somber right now, but hopefully by the end, there's hope. So this isn't a we're off the hook story, right? Like it's not about, oh, um, men or women are in a better position, but it's the opposite. What I want to stress is the same blood sugar problem that's coming for your brain is coming for your heart. Now let's go into some of the terms, right? Like and take a deep breath, smile. Don't feel like, oh my God, Jenny, you have shared all these things. Positive. Let me define a few words that you're probably gonna hear because once these click, the whole thing will make sense, right? Let's talk about blood sugar or glucose. This is just a sugar circulating in your bloodstream from the food that you eat. Your body wants to keep it in a fairly tight range. You shouldn't have too high levels or too low levels. Neither is good. Insulin. Think of insulin as that key that unlocks your cells so sugar can get out of the blood and into your cells where it's used for energy. After you eat, your pancreas is going to release that insulin as a hormone. The cells open up, blood sugar comes back down, and then the system is working. Now, insulin resistance, I want you to imagine when maybe the locks is getting a little sticky, the key does not turn as easily, and maybe your body's answer is to make more keys, more insulin to try to force that door open. Now, for a while, it does work, and your blood sugar may end up looking normal, but under the hood, things are already going wrong. That insulin resistance and that quiet thing that is building up, it can run for years without you seeing any symptoms. That's why I feel that helping and sharing with everybody about balancing their plate, balancing your blood sugar is important. Even if you don't even see your A1C levels elevated as of yet, or you don't have a type 2 diabetes diagnosis. What is prediabetes and type 2 diabetes? And I know that you've been listening to me, you probably know this, but for those that are listening, prediabetes is when your blood sugar is higher than normal, but not yet in the diabetes range. That is like a warning sign. Now, type 2 diabetes is when your system is overwhelmed. The blood sugar stays high for a bit longer than what it should. And here is the key point for today: the damage doesn't politely wait for a diabetes diagnosis. It starts in that pre-diabetes window. That's why I'm so passionate for what I do. Now, how does this reach the brain? You must be asking, because I'm talking about blood sugar and insulin, and you must be thinking, okay, what's in it for the brain? I can't see the whole picture. Here's first, and this is a big one: blood vessels. High blood sugar damages your blood vessels everywhere. It doesn't matter, everywhere, including the tiny, delicate ones in your brain. And damaged vessels mean the brain doesn't get the steady fuel and the oxygen that it needs. And over time, that contributes to the kind of decline that we see in dementia. And this is very plain biology. That's just a fact. Now, the second component is inflammation. Chronically high blood sugar keeps the body in that low grade inflamed state. And that is so hard on your brain cells. And third, this one's specific to men. There's a two-way street between blood sugar and testosterone. And this is something not many people talk about. Low testosterone is linked to more insulin resistance and belly fat. And then the high blood sugar pushes the testosterone down. So they drag each other in the wrong direction. That midlife combo of low energy, more belly fat, and that creeping blood sugar that isn't random. Now, you may have heard, and I want to mention it just because I had a podcast before and I'm going to mention it here again. You may have heard about Alzheimer's being called type 3 diabetes. I want to be straight. It's a theory. It's not official. There is no official diagnosis. The idea that the brain develops its own kind of insulin resistance, and there's still a lot of studies and science to be proven around that. It's interesting, and researchers are just going deep into it and studying it. But I want you to be clear that it's not an official diagnosis and it is still debated. Now, here's what matters. You don't need that theory to take this that I'm telling you seriously. The link between high blood sugar and the damaged brain holds up on the basics alone of blood vessels and inflammation. So we don't need type 3 diabetes to be official in order for you to pay attention to this. What I already shared about how the blood sugar impacts your blood provoke in you the desire for taking action. Now, what are the symptoms? When you go and you talk to your doctor, and let me be clear up front, I am not here to diagnose you. Do not diagnose yourself. I want you to be informed so you can go to your doctor, have a very educated conversation and productive conversation because we know doctors don't have much time. So, the more educated, the more tools you have and clarity you have with your questions, the more you're going to get their expertise and support. The goal of this segment is simpler. I want to help you know when it's worth probably booking that appointment. Because the whole game here is catching this early in the quiet years before the damage stacks up. So, signs that your blood sugar may be worth checking, none of these are proof of anything. They're just nudges. Things that you're like, okay, maybe I should talk to my doctor and get tested. If you're feeling thirsty more than usual and urinating more often, that is one sign. Maybe unusual fatigue, that tired after eating, that foggy feeling, very intense, blurred vision, cuts or sores that heal very slowly, the tingling and the numbness in the hands or feet, the unexplained weight changes, and men that sometimes tend to ignore or feel awkward about is low energy. Like, typically, men are taught to be strong and keep going, right? So, a lot of men are not ready to admit, okay, I have low energy. And they may have been writing that off to being older, maybe the low libido. And I'm going to go ahead and say it, erectile dysfunction. It is tied to blood sugar. So, all of these are factors that I want you to consider, think about it. And if you know that it's ringing a bell, you already know that it resonates, talk to your doctor because these are the earliest warning signs of blood vessel and metabolic trouble. Because some of these blood vessels, the small ones, they show the strain first. Now, it can be an early alarm bell that you have, so pay attention to it. Now, more useful than any symptoms, because remember, the dangerous stage often has no symptoms, are the numbers. So think of these as your brain health dashboard. So next time you go to the doctor or you have your annual checkup, make sure you include your fasting glucose. Look at how your blood sugar is in the morning before eating. Look at your A1C levels. This is the big one. This one is the average blood sugar over about 3 months. Check your blood pressure. The LDL cholesterol, that's the bad cholesterol. New research ties that high levels to dementia risk as well. And I would say something that not many people talk about, measure your waist. Belly fat is the engine behind all of this. Now, you don't need to memorize target numbers. You just need to know your numbers and let your doctor interpret them. If you're a man over 40 and you can't remember the last time you had these checks, that's your sign to go get them checked. And another thing about the brain, ordinary forgetfulness, right? Like blanking on a name, walking into a room and forgetting why, that's somewhat normal and normal at every age. Now, what is worth a doctor's conversation is a memory change that disrupts daily life. But honestly, for most of us listening, This episode is about a decade or two before any of that. And we still have every chance to change that trajectory. As you probably know, if you have been a listener, I always like to touch on the science, the facts, bring clarity on concepts, give you some baseline information simplified. But I always like to provide some strategies for you to support your health. Now, here are some simple ways that you can support your brain. There was a US trial called Pointer back in 2025, very recent. It was a real randomized gold standard study, and it followed older adults at risk of decline, and they actually got tested on a lifestyle program. Now, this is an amazing thing. The result, it improved their cognition and protected their thinking, and it worked across the board for men and for women. And even for people carrying that high risk Alzheimer's gene, because there is one, that last part is huge. It means your genes are not your destiny here. And I say that a lot to my clients and potential clients when they say, oh, diabetes runs in my family. There is no way out of this. And I tell them, well, the gene gives you a factor, but it is not a life sentence. It's not your destiny. So let's go back to this study. What they tested was four simple pillars. And watch this. Every one of them also fixes your blood sugar. One, I'm going to give you the four pillars so you can start doing that right now. Move your body. The program used about 30 minutes of moderate aerobic activity. A brisk walk counts perfectly. They did it 4 times a week, and they did some strength training twice a week. Why this works double duty? Because your muscles are like a sponge for blood sugar. I have said that many times before, and I will say it again. So when you move, and especially when you build the muscle, you soak sugar out of your bloodstream and you improve that insulin's ability to do its job. Exercise is the single most direct lever you've got. Now, two, eat for your brain. One thing that the trial used is what's called the mind diet. And don't let the name intimidate you. It is simple. Lots of leafy greens, berries, nuts, whole grains, olive oil, and fish. The food that protects your brain is the same food that steadies your blood sugar. Now, I want you to keep in mind whole grains are there. This is not keto. This is not cutting all carbs. This is getting those complex carbs rich in fiber. This is getting good sources of protein and omega 3s from the fish and the nuts. Very Mediterranean, I would say. Now, number three, challenge your mind and stay social. Some of my clients, they focus so much on nutrition, and at times we set a goal about doing a fun activity, an outing with friends, because sometimes you focus so much on the health and you neglect your social life. And that is important. So challenge your mind and stay social. How do you do that? Keep learning. Stay mentally engaged. This matters more than men would admit. Stay connected to other people. Isolation is its own risk factor, in my opinion. When I see clients that are somewhat isolated, we start working on looking for things that they enjoy and that they can encourage that connectivity with other people. Now, number four, know your numbers. Same dashboard we talked about. Keep an eye on blood pressure. Keep an eye on your weight, even though it's a factor, not the only thing to follow. Look at your blood sugar. Look at what gets measured and how it gets managed. And one honest thing about timing, the biggest payoff comes from starting in midlife, your 40s and your 50s. Do not wait until something it's wrong or you get a formal diagnosis, start working on these things now. So start now. The best time to start? Right now. But if you're a younger man thinking, I've got time, this is my time. I'm telling you, the habits you build now are protecting a brain you won't need to worry about for 30 years. So the time is now. So that's it. No magic pill, no expensive supplement. You move, you eat real food, you use your brain. There's some apps out there that you can use to exercise your brain. Some of them are actually pretty good. And know your numbers, track your numbers. Boring on purpose, I have to say. Some of my strategies are a little boring, but it is because they're actually what science says. A lot of people complicate and overcomplicate strategies because they want to make them unique and special. And most of those complex strategies mm, tend to not have much science to back them up. Now, here's the ask that I have for you. And I mean this one. I want you to think of a man in your life who needs to hear this. Maybe it's your dad that never goes to the doctor. Maybe be an advocate and take your dad to the doctor. Maybe it's your brother. Maybe it's a buddy that you have at work or in a social gathering and jokes about his gut, but never checks his blood sugar. The guy who's never clicked on something called brain health, but would absolutely listen to you. Send him this episode. And you might be the reason he books an appointment he's been putting off for years. And this is genuinely the conversation men sometimes don't have. We all know men tend to not like to go to the doctor or not like to show vulnerability or talk about the body and the brain. Keep stuff sometimes a bit quiet. And all this can be building up while they feel fine. If this was useful, follow the show so you get the alert and share this with one man who needs it, at least one. If you have more than one, please be my guest. That's how this information reaches more people who've never go looking for it themselves. And for the ladies, the women listening, don't tune out because this is just as much for you in two ways. First, this is not only a man's problem. The blood sugar brain link is as strong for women. So the same playbook, move, eat with the mind style, know your numbers. So share this with the men you love and then take it for yourself too. Okay? Both. Always both. And this is it for today. I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions, you can send me a message. I am on Instagram, Coach NP. My email is in the show notes. Send me a message. Let me know if you have any questions, if you have any pointers, anything that you would like to hear in future episodes, please share. And protect the brain you've got and pass it on. Remember, as always, this episode and every episode is for general education. It's not medical advice. I really and always encourage to talk to a qualified healthcare professional about your individual situations, your symptoms, any screening, any treatment options. Even when I talk about supplements or anything like that, I want you to talk to your doctor because they have the full picture. Okay? Until the next one. Bye.